Hey, everybody. Welcome to the meeting, August 5th. This is the agenda has been posted and there'll be a link with any meeting notes. We are coming together after several meetings, and this is just to get Aaron caught up a little bit too, is we've been meeting since I think about May, just to get started on some projects. And this is one team, events and entity, which will probably eventually break up into two depending on what the future holds. And then there's another team called the comms team, which focuses on the website, communications, and social media. So tonight, jumping into the agenda, I'd like to start off, because Aaron, you're new to us, maybe we could just do a round of introductions. I'll go ahead and start. My name's Scott. My playa name is Toaster. I have been with the Land of Monkey theme camp for a few years, and before that, Sun Guardians. Sun Guardians became Land of Monkey at some point. I've been in the burner community now for, I don't know if it's 12 or 13 years. It's a blur at this point. And I started Queer Burners in 2008. I'll pick Matt to go next.
Yeah, so been with Land of Monkey and going to Burning Man for, I forgot how many years it's been? 6 years? I honestly can't remember. So yeah, like 5 or 6 years, something like that. This year I took over Land of Monkey as mayor, and then Burning Man was canceled. So, planning to make it to the playa this coming year though. And yeah, just really want to look for an opportunity to invest some time and energy into the community until the next burn. So that's why I'm here.
Great.
So yeah, I've been a burner for 8 years, I think, and camped with Scott and Matt for 3 years, I think. And last year I camped with Covered in Joy. Been a ranger for 5 years, and went to several of the All of Us and the other queer burner events before that at Groundswell. So yeah.
All right, Aaron, your turn.
Hooray! Last but not least, I hope. So my name is Aaron. So we're gonna apply a name. I think it's Rubik's. I don't know. I've been twice. But what I've gone through during both of those times, obviously it was magical. I could say things that everyone understands and agrees. But why I'm getting involved now is, particularly during COVID, I think it's important that we double down to create spaces because they're needed now more than ever. And I've got, I've got spirit to give to that. And so that's why I'm here today.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. What camp are you associated with, if at all? Or
first I went solo, terrible idea. And then second, I went with another group called Disco Diet, which is smaller than small. So nothing reputable, I assure you.
I'm sure you'll make waves. Right on.
There are no reputable Burning Man camps. If you're at a reputable one, you're not doing Burning Man right.
Noted.
Well, you don't want a bad reputation, so we'll, hey.
Well, fair enough.
And there are those that are out there. Yeah. Anyway, so looking at the agenda, one of our items, or our top item, at least tonight, right now, is talking about the 501c3. And add to this, you guys, as you need to, and we'll keep notes in there as well. I don't know if you have access to make any changes, Nick, but oh my God, Aaron, I'm sorry. Nick is the guy that we've been dealing with at Burn Without Borders. Just getting names crossed in my head. Let's see. Do you want to start this role, Matt, or?
Sure. So looking at the notes. I just posted them in the Zoom chat. Yeah, so we, I guess just to get Aaron up to speed, we met with a guy I know from way back in the day with the hackerspace community, and he's now involved with the burner community and has been for some time, particularly with Burners Without Borders. And he also happens to be a CPA, and one of his specialties is figuring out how to get organizations 501c3 status, including theme camps and various art projects at Burning Man. So we met with him. He, you know, I've worked with him in the past on a couple different projects. He's been great. He's extremely reliable and just a good person, and definitely embodies the spirit of the 10 principles, which he did even like before I think either one of us really thought about going to Burning Man, which is interesting. So he, like what we'd like to propose, but we want to get some feedback from the group, is that we work with Nick, and we have to pay him a little bit of money, but he will take care of all of the paperwork that we need for both the federal and the California application process for the 501c3. You know, it's frankly, the paperwork isn't all that challenging with the exception of bylaws, which can take a lot of time. And you really want to get those right. Because it can cause you a lot of headache later down the road if you don't have your bylaws right. And I can go into that more if I can give you some horror stories that I've seen in the hackerspace community, if you're interested. In any case, I forget how much was it? Let me pull up his engagement letter.
The total that I recall was about 1,600.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, it was 800 for his fees, and then it was 800 for the filing fees, which is actually like the filing fees, like he doesn't get any cut of that, and 800 to help us set a 501c3 is actually really cheap. So I'm inclined to go down that road, you know, and kind of just jump at this opportunity and do it. We could go with like LegalZoom or some other service, but you just don't get that level of like one-on-one engagement as you would with like a CPA or a lawyer. And I know for a fact, if we've tried to get a lawyer in the Bay Area to do this, it would be like thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands. So
Do you happen to have any specific quotes on that, or you know, like through anything? I've seen several services online that actually will do that for you, like you were saying, but I don't know about the quality and so forth. But have you looked at the pricing structure of any of that, or?
yeah, I think LegalZoom was like a few hundred. I'll double check, and then by the end of this call, I can give you a firm number. I don't remember off the top of my head. But they just give you like a template, like, here are your bylaws. You know, it's like you just get the bylaws of every other 501c3 that comes out of LegalZoom. So yeah.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No. So that's it. I don't know. Do you have anything to add there, Scott?
No, I mean, there are some things, and where are those, that are, you know, that we have to create that are mandatory with that. That, you know, the bylaws, the board, there's a couple other things I don't, for some reason is this?
Articles of incorporation, and there's a bunch of forms and stuff that need to.
Yeah. Just glancing over the stuff. And then one of the things that I want to have within our structure too is a code of conduct, and how we approach meetings. So as we talked about in the last meeting, we talked about consensus versus majority. It sounds like we, as I recall, we were felt good about the consensus model, because, you know, it's people have to learn to give and take, but we can still make accomplishments with that and not alienate people as much as possible. We do have a community of people that are already marginalized on a lot of levels, and we don't need to have that among ourselves as well. If that sounds fair to people. Let me just take a quick look here.
Well, along those lines with the consensus thing, I'm definitely in favor of that. But like we were discussing before, it is very process heavy and time consuming. So in the event that decisions need to be made more, efficaciously, then we might want to have some sort of like stop or, like an alternative method that, that would prevent a conflict holding up the workings of the organization. I'm not quite sure, but that's something we can work out with whoever's helping us organize. It's just a concern.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, some of the roles that we have to talk about is executive director, chairperson, treasurer, clerk, and a role that I would really like to see in that is a comms director or manager. We already have some people that might be good fits in some of these roles. The clerk was recommended to be a lawyer or a legal student, while the treasurer should be a CPA, and each person should have a second layer behind them, in case somebody, falls off the planet or whatever. If we're going to do it right. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I've been reading up on some of the, the formation, how to form the nonprofits and different methods and mechanisms and structures and so forth. So I don't think the secretary needs to be someone, directly involved with law. And I don't think the treasurer needs to be a CPA. The couple sources that I was reading about suggest that we we actually hire out that function that actually keep books, and that the treasurer would be more of an oversight position anyway, so it doesn't require that, that nitty-gritty technical skill, per se. So I'm just throwing that out there as, again, it's such a vast, area and so many different types of experiences that I don't think there's one form that fits every situation. So,
yeah,
I'm willing to be fluid in our approach as long as it makes sense to whatever decision we happen to go with.
Yeah, so. And what you're saying makes sense too. I mean, these are just the recommendations from Nick. And these are just from the notes in that conversation. It doesn't sound like we are going to be forced down a specific path. We decide what that path is going to be. And now I know, Aaron, that your interest in being part of this meeting may not necessarily be part of the 501c3 or the board. Looking over the form that you filled out is more interested in the event production and stuff like that, if I'm understanding that correctly. Is that right?
Well, there's a lot of hats that I can help wear. So interestingly enough, I actually formed a 501c3 once upon a time, but I was in college and it was like not something we should replicate. It was for our fraternity. I started a gay fraternity at Arizona State, blah, blah, blah. I know that you can do it and that you can do your own forms. I hear you on the bylaws and all that stuff, articles of incorporation. Those can be messy and time consuming to modify and costly to file. So that's kind of where you're saving the money. What I'm curious, because my background is like in startups, and a lot of this stuff is like places where I help the companies that I support. What is the goal of the 501c3? What are we trying to achieve with it? And that to me flows who needs to be involved from like a board liability positions perspective. And that can kind of inform our approach and whether or not we can do other things in tandem with the 501c3 filing, or if we have to wait for that to complete before we can move forward on other things. So that's what I'm trying to understand. And I know I'm jumping in midstream, so I'm just trying to listen and contribute where I can.
No, that's a perfect question. I mean, because when we talked about it with Nick, and I think when we talked about it ourselves too, I mean, we're forming this 501c3 as Queer Burners. Under that umbrella will be all of us and any other events that we produce under that. And then one of the huge bonuses for me that I really want to push for and that I really want to see develop into something is sponsoring artists within the community, artists and performers, you know, networking with other 501c3s to help those artists and performers fund their goals. And, you know, that in itself, when we're talking about so much money being shifted around, is also something that will drive some of those questions that, like, me and Kurt and you and everybody were talking about here, as far as who sits on those seats and why having somebody trustworthy and vigilant on the financial side of it is going to be so important. You know?
Definitely. And then in the background here, I'm just going through my Rolodex of like gay lawyers I know, and I'm happy to offer intros to that. Not that we need to go back and redo any work that you've already done, but just as a resource. So
well, right now we're at the starting gate for the 501c3, where we've had a lot of meetings to discuss briefly about all of us. We've discussed briefly about a event that and we'll talk about more in a minute, involving a new event in October that we were talking about. And, you know, there's other things. I've had leadership gatherings in the past, and there's, you know, possibilities that just open up with having this kind of a structure around and not just sitting in my checking account kind of thing, you know?
Did you say, Scott, that one of the goals is that fiduciary responsibility, having that as a separate entity, is really one of the primary areas, at least structurally, in addition to, of course, you know, supporting art and producing events, but being able to do those in a responsible.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be, if we can't make that happen, I don't see why we should even continue, to be honest with you. And I'm not trying to be a jerk or anything like that, but, you know, having dealt with paying all of us and the other events from the past, and a lot of that out of my checkbook, you know what I mean? As far as some of those things are concerned, I can't afford that.
Mm-hmm.
When we were standing there at the end of the last All of Us with, you know, this big bill due that we didn't have the money to cover with, you know, that we worked out in the end, is not something that I ever want to be staring at again, you know? And it wasn't financial irresponsibility. It was just, there were too many balls in the air. And I didn't have that person that could really manage the money as with any skill that I, you know, compared to what I was able to do on my own.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Exactly.
And I think that I feel very strongly about that. And I see nods. So I'm assuming everybody kind of agrees that financial stability and financial structure has to be number one for us to do this process.
Yep, absolutely.
We have to figure out what that is. So then that becomes up to documentation. Now you've got the letter from Nick now, right, Matt?
So if I can jump in, sorry, I had to step out for a minute, so I apologize if I'm repeating anything. But I think at this point, it's really important that we get as many people and as many voices involved who want to take an active role in this organization, and let them decide what it should be and what we will do as an organization. From a perspective of, you know, art, events, and supporting the overall LGBTQ community. So I just want to put that out there, that, like, I think we are a little squishy and open-ended right now in, like, what we want to do. I think we have some good ideas. And I would like to get some more folks involved to really decide the direction and have more voices. Yeah, I think we've talked about that before, just throwing that out there.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the process has been a little bit crazy that people stepping up and being present hasn't really been working out.
but we also haven't really had a goal, right? And at this point, we have a goal. Well, we have a couple goals. We want to get this 501c3 organization up and running. We are looking at 2 potential events. One potentially this year with a small group of people, and then all of us in 2021. So I think we got a couple goals, and we got to rally people around that and figure out who is interested in making those happen. Yeah.
Well, one of my action items after our last meeting was to start reaching out to people through email. We talked about using the Eventbrite email from 2018, and I did that. Did you guys get email from that? Kurt and Matt should have gotten it. You weren't at the 2018 All of Us, were you, Aaron?
I was not.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. I mean, did the voice that was going on there make sense and kind of, speak to that, or?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't recall getting it, but I'm going to check right now, see if I missed it.
It did come as
I sent it on the second. What's that?
It did come as an update from Eventbrite for that event. So
Okay.
it might have shown up in like a folder. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we're all on the same page. And I don't know if there's, I haven't done the research it sounds like Matt and Kurt have done on the kind of documents that need to be written. I'm aware, I've only done an LLC before. And I did it through one of those, the one you mentioned earlier, the one of those like Rocket Lawyer or whatever it was. Yeah, and it was pretty much done and out of my hands, and I didn't do much with it. So, so did we talk about getting those documents written at this point? I mean, is a December goal to have this finished? I'm putting quotes in the air. Finished, realistic, so we can start 2021 talking about queer burners.
Yes.
New self. Okay.
Yeah, I would say
Talking about the documents that need to be done then. Do you guys want to do a shared document that writes these, or do you want to how do you want to proceed? I mean, these are we have some pretty cut and dry documents that need to be there.
Question: what kind of response did you get from that Eventbrite note? I'm just reading it now. I didn't see it when it came in. Sorry, but was there any kind of direct response, or did you invite people to these meetings, or what was the?
So you haven't seen it at all. Then it's
just reading it right now.
Website if you want to take a look at it. I put it on a blog post too, just to share it, but on queerburner.com. But none. Like literally no response at all. The post that I put up on Facebook 2 or 3 weeks ago, that I think Aaron saw that and signed up with that one. And everybody that did sign up came from that post 2 or 3 weeks ago. So actually, absolutely no one that I can tell has responded. I have 12 responses altogether. 4 of them are those of us on the, 5 of them are, I think, are us that are on the team now. And then everybody else, there was only like 2 other people that wanted to get more deeply involved. And then I got an email from Scott Burdett from Camp Conception today that said he would be here for the meeting, but I guess he wasn't able to make it.
So just to make sure that we're talking about the same thing, there's a Queer Burners group of which I'm a part, and there's 3,600 members, and the response rate is that low?
And yeah, unfortunately, yeah. I mean,
wow.
Facebook is kind of like screaming into a void with communications a lot of times. So that's why we went to the email through Eventbrite today. There's other channels I can make. I've emailed the um, Camp Beaverton group email, which goes to all their campers. I've talked to Ariel, aka Trixie Lamont, and Ronnie Appleseed. I think that's applesauce or something from Gender Blender, because trying to address at least one concern is that we definitely need to see more diversity in our voice. I think a lot of people are just turned off for Burning Man activities right now, and I mean I can understand. There was a suggestion from someone. I don't remember who it was now. It was they suggested. I mean, so we start our board now, and it might be possibly all cis white men that are on it, but we say, okay, this is where we are now. In a few months, let's talk about who wants to be actually part of this board. And I think we should get through all of us 2021. Get through just getting this started, and then seeing who wants to get into the sand and play in this with the toys.
The goal is to start a 501c3 in order to have an apparatus that will be able to fund all of us 2021, which is scheduled to happen tentatively, I'm sure. What time?
Well, I mean, it's been our main event has always been on Memorial Day weekend. We're not married to that weekend right now. Nobody's talking about scheduling right now. There's rumors that even Burning Man 2021 could be canceled at this point. So
let's pretend we had a 501c3 today, and let's pretend there's some fundraising effort, less than fabulous, but like workable. If you were to just put up a Facebook event, invite these 3,000 some people, partner organizations, all that stuff, are we saying that we're not confident people would come?
Oh no, not at all. Not even slightly. I'm very confident. Now we talked about I'll just give you some background because we the event in October, we talked about limiting it to 50, just because we didn't know, and working all within COVID restrictions. And then if we could bump it up to 100. The thing is like when we talk about fundraising too, I've been very successful every year because I've usually started a Indiegogo campaign right after the burn, and that would sell tickets to people who wanted to go to all of us starting then for their early donations, so we could have money for deposits and expenses, and it's always worked out really well. And I have every confidence that it'll do the same this year, especially if we're talking about some of these additional things that we're going to be able to do. Yeah, I mean, I have absolute confidence we could probably get about 150 people at least to a all of us event.
Have you always sold out, all of us, or what are the numbers like?
No, for the last 2 years, we had 150 people. The year before that, we were, I don't remember now. We might have been 152 because I was really pushing the limit with Groundswell that year.
I don't know if they even have capacity for 150, but that would be
What's
the
that?
outside for sure.
What was that?
I'm not sure that Groundswell has capacity for 150. So
whatever their capacity was at that time, I was pushing it.
Yeah.
I was pushing it. But the year before that, the first year, we had 90 people.
So I think to answer Aaron's question, like the All of Us event has been successful. It's really like one of the main goals of getting a 501c3 nonprofit in place is to have it be more than just Scott and have more people involved and more people who, you know, are calling the shots and saying, this is what we're going to do. And also increase the impacts that we can have within the community. So look at things like art and possibly do other events during the year to support the community and bring the community together.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I mean, 2019 was the perfect reason why this has to be in place. I mean, we did our fundraising, we had our contract for the land, things were starting to roll forward, and then I had medical and family issues and I had to fall out. And I couldn't just pass this on because those tickets were still under my name. The money was still under my name. You know, this event was still under my name. Now we're taking it out of that. So if I get hit by a bus, then someone can fill that role and the whole mechanism can move forward. You know, whether it's me, whether it's the clerk or whoever it is that's part of the board, that vacuum can be quickly filled without, destroying the whole thing.
I think we need to go hunting. I think we need to go find people to fill these spots rather than for waiting for them to come to us. I think they need to be connected to other community groups. Like most of my friends are BAs, for instance, because we'll get a network effect. They'll be able to bring bodies if that's what we need. But getting that initial board fill is huge because once they're on the board, it's a lot more difficult to negotiate that. And so I think when I'm thinking of this in the context of a party, a lot of this is like, who do you want to invite? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say maybe Glamcox is not a first choice, for instance, for some, right? And so that's something we have to think about, right? So I think if you were to, what I think we can capitalize on right now that's unique to this moment is that Burning Man was taken away from us. I think the want, wish, and desire is there. I think it's latent. You just have to hook it, right? People are going to want to make up for lost time, and I think we could use that to our advantage.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. But I'm just because of one thing that made me really feel weird, well, what you just said, I just want to make sure that we're not shaming Glamcox on any level, because they have been, Comfort and Joy, Gender Blender have been huge supporters of Queer Burners and have been 1000% present. And so I never ever want to give an impression that we're, say anything negative about any of these groups, because I don't think people see the great things that a lot of these groups are doing, and I just want to make sure.
Yeah. Just to recommunicate, I have no prejudice one way or the other, but what I'm saying is that groups will have dynamics when you bring people in, and like that's why it's so important, to your point, to have a representative board. I didn't mean to indicate that some people should or shouldn't be. I'm just saying that if the goal is to take this and make that more inclusive, we have to go hunt each one of these groups to have that representation so that it's inclusive from the start.
Yeah, we got some great people out there. I mean, we have some solid gold people out there. And frankly, me personally, I'm a little nervous about approaching people. I feel unsure, and that might strike a couple of you odd, is because, I feel nervous about, that ask from me. I don't think I could do it alone. I guess that's all I'm saying. Because I could think of people that would be great to have this. I mean, I always think back to, the amazing work that Christian Williams has done, with BAS and, getting people motivated to work their asses off in the sun on that sheep every year. And, I see how, the folks over at Comfort and Joy are truly, dedicated to what they're doing, and to bring that on board. And then some of the other people I've seen in the community too, I think you're absolutely right. Where are we at with time? I just want to check.
I think a couple things we can do, Scott, is we can put a blurb in the regional burner newsletters. So East Bay burners and San Francisco burners. Honestly, I feel like that's a better way to reach people than Facebook. Facebook is terrible right now, like as far as getting traction.
Yeah, Moose is really supportive out of East Bay Burners for us. And
yeah, I'm sure she would put a blurb in there.
you know what we should do is include the video for that was made for 2017 All of Us.
Yeah,
that would be
does anyone have a contact at Jackrabbit Speaks? Because that would be, if we could get like some sort of profile or some sort of news story that we're forming this thing through that publication, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Okay, we can bring this up to the comms team too and see what like Wink can manifest, because and I think when we start moving forward on some of this stuff, I'd like to get Wink also involved with this. He's been focused on comms, and we're doing a lot to change the website. We're going to get into this conversation in the next phase of our meeting. And I want to try and keep our meetings at about an hour. Do you guys think that we've reached a point in our conversation about the 501c3 where now we need to start talking about either what's our main focus now? Is it finding members, or is it documentation, or are we?
I still think we need to get more people involved, because that will inform what our mission is and the direction we want to take this organization. So that would be my 2 cents. I mean, we can still, we could potentially engage Nick, or, if Aaron has a good lawyer in mind who might be able to do this for cheap or pro bono, that would also be great. And, we can start there and see, kind of what we need to do and get some guidance. And in parallel, find some more folks who want to engage early and help us set the direction of this organization. That's my 2 cents. So I'm open to other ideas.
What you just said, Matt, really resonates with me. I think that those are the two parallel goals right now, and I don't think that we need to exclude one for the other. I think they can be pursued simultaneously, but I really do feel that there needs to be a greater diversity of voices involved at this early stage. And there's such a huge population that it is surprising that there has been more response, but I think we do need to hook people that we want involved. So I think a more direct approach. And Scott, if you want support in finding people to ask, that for the actual ask, I think there are people who'd be willing to do that with you. For me, for one, for sure. If you have the contact, and maybe the comms team has some way to organize that more, concretely. But I think finding some way to recruit people to be involved now is important.
Well, do you guys want to put some thought into this, and then in our next meeting we can talk about a strategy and maybe come up with some names, whether it's names to join the board, or a solution for our treasurer situation or our lawyer situation. What do you think?
I mean, what I'm happy to take as an action item is I'll contact all my lawyers tonight. I've got about 5 that I'm looking at that are kind of aligned with the values of this organization as I understand it, just so we can have a second opinion and see if there's even any interest there. So I can take that as homework. And I'll also reach out. I'm pretty connected to the leadership of Boz, just as like a trial, and say, hey, there's this thing that's going on. How would you or some slice of your group feel about it? And just relay back the response just as a practice and see if it fits with what we're trying to build here.
Aaron, for those lawyers that you're talking about, are they ones that may have experience in the formation of 501c3 organizations, or just in general? What's your
specific
purpose?
To nonprofits?
Okay.
Yeah. And the goal there, just so I'm clear, is to get someone who can help us through this process correctly and on the cheap. And, you know, we'll just compare that to the 800 that's on the table, see if we can get a better deal or something else. I'll just relay that to here and see the group can make the decision.
Awesome.
I mean, I'm just gonna say that the positive side of Nick for me is that there is a relationship that Matt already has with him, and he's a participant. I mean, a player with Burners Without Borders, so he's definitely 10 principle, understand 10 principle, and yeah, I'm just putting that out there.
But we don't have to put all the work on one person too. Like Nick could help us more on the financial side of things as a CPA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, I have a few ideas for people too. I've got a person actually from Disorient that I'm thinking about, who is a lawyer. I've got a couple other people in mind too. So should I just bring that to the table next time?
Sure.
That would be the same for any of us, right? Anything else on that subject? Kurt, you've been doing some research on the documentation.
Just looking at the standard requirements, just to be familiar with them, really, that's all. But there's a lot of resources on the web, so I was just
Okay.
pushing my memory on what's needed. The steps, it's pretty, I mean, there's pretty concrete guidance out there what needs to be done. It's not that difficult.
I am paying attention. I'm just making notes while we're talking, so sorry if I don't seem like I'm paying attention.
Household debt, adjusted for inflation, was at an all-time high.
Okay.
$15.5 trillion.
All right. So that kind of, I mean, just the way the conversation went tonight, I think that'll kind of dominate probably our next meeting. Just kind of leave it at that. Okay. Can we talk a little bit? I want to give you guys a quick update, and I put a lot of it in the notes on the comms team right now. Wink and Joel are talking about doing some updates to the identity that is on there, changing the logo, simplifying it a little bit. They're going to be coming up with some ideas and submit those. I think the identity needs to kind of flow with what this team is doing upon creating an identity for the 501c3. So I'm just going to ask those two sources to kind of meet at some point to figure that out. Does that make sense?
Definitely. I think I'd like to start getting involved in the comms team now that I see what direction it's going in. Because those topics definitely interest me well in terms of branding and identity of the organization and that sort of thing. I'm familiar with.
Any of you are welcome to jump into that meeting anytime you want. Joel is, so we talked about the possibility of just flushing the site entirely and going down to some key items about that are already there, and just kind of taking off all the stuff like the groups and all that stuff that just hasn't been touched in at least 3 years. Just some of the stuff that's just kind of eating up space on the website and not serving anyone, and focusing on the stuff that is serving people. So we're looking at cleaning up that end of things as well. Let's see. We'll be doing some deep edits, refining some information. I did recommend Wink being our comms manager or comms director in relationship to the board, because he's got a strong interest in what's going on in the communication side of what we're doing. Okay. Any comments or questions on any of that?
Can you send or add me to the invite, the calendar invite for the comms meetings?
Yeah, no problem.
And I'll try to make it. I know you had one on Sunday and I was driving back
That
from.
meeting, yeah, that meeting happens Sundays at 11.
Okay.
We'll meet at the first and third Sunday of the month.
Okay.
So it happens like right before this meeting. Yeah. And all right, so that's that. Should I move on to discussion about the October event?
Yeah, we definitely need to talk about that.
Well, I mean, I'm under the impression right now that it's not looking great that it's going to happen. We're definitely not in a place in the world today where I thought we would be. Yeah, I mean, I can only be an optimist so long.
I have a little groundswell update as well for you.
Oh, good. Okay. Why don't you jump into that?
Okay, so I did finally hear back from Jess, the groundswell, and I was kind of surprised because she didn't respond to my first couple follow-up notes to talk about, how do we make this decision about when and under what conditions we would have an event there. And I was trying to engage them and their broader community in that discussion to have sort of a transparent, open dialogue about, what factors we want to take into consideration, how we might manage a group event, if we did have one. And silence. And eventually when she did get back to me, that was like, we're not ready to have a group event, full stop. It was a very, terse response. And I was kind of surprised that they weren't even interested in having the conversation about the conversation, like, how do we get more people to be involved in this? Just from a perspective of dialogue and airing our fears and our hopes and they didn't. I didn't get any more information about what process they might be employing to actually have that conversation or make a decision about it, or even the local government resources or regulations or what have you. So she said, if you have a group of 12 people or less, great. Otherwise, we're not having anybody come on the property. So
Yeah.
and they weren't anticipating it changing anytime soon. That was really the end of the conversation.
Well, I was reading through their website this weekend just because I was catching up on their fundraiser, and they really seem to be struggling financially right now. So they probably don't want to put anything that'll threaten any of that in their way. And I could definitely appreciate that. I think right now we need to kind of, in my opinion, and I'll go with what you guys think. The October 9th to the 12th dates for this new event don't sound realistic at all. I think that if we do have a change in the world and they're willing to talk to us about doing something and we can pivot, if it is, 50 people or 100 people or whatever it might be, I think we're capable of doing that. I think we'll have people hungry for a get together if it's safe to do it. Underlining safe.
Is there any way to know like what the underlying hard stop, any other way to get at what that might be? Financial concerns, just like, politics or anything else? Because like, this is where I think the 501c3 becomes like more and more relevant is there's insurance benefits that come with that. And if you could offer that guarantee, then that at least helps to remove that objection. So I'm just trying to understand that.
For this particular venue, they didn't share what their concerns were, and I don't think they're willing to have a dialogue about it. So I would count them out for the time being unless something really changes.
I mean, this group is Radical Fairy and, that kind of world a little bit. It's, I think they're just closing ranks and just until they're safe, they feel safe to venture behind that. And since I think they are running their group kind of as a consensus-based management style there. So I'm sure that no one wants to tip over the boat by saying something that will get somebody else in a bad position. And I can appreciate that. I wouldn't take the hard stop as something personal. I don't think they're ready to commit to anything right now. And they're just worried about, feeding themselves pretty much.
There's
So
a
I didn't think
venue.
I was just, I thought they'd be more willing to have the conversation, and engage, but I can understand that I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of, like you said, there's some dynamics going on within their leadership or their community, basically, since it's consensus based. It's all good in that sense. It just leaves us without any, anything that we can plan for. And just on the broader topic of like, under what circumstances would we have this event? I mean, I hear things about, these schools opening, in the very near future, colleges. And there's no consensus really about what's safe and what, and there's going to be a whole spectrum of comfort level, with what is safe and what's not safe, and how do you mitigate risks, through testing. And, there are a lot of different strategies that I hear people talking about. So, I think it's not impossible to do an event in October if we had, like testing pre, during, and after the event, whatever, just to help alleviate fears of, why we'd still be having masks and distancing and all that. But, testing is a really strong way to mitigate, spread. Do we want to have a complicated sort of, structure to an event that's supposed to be, lighthearted and fun and, all that sort of stuff? I mean, it's kind of they're incongruous a little bit. So, but I agree with you, Scott. Basically, it doesn't look like it's going to happen unless there's a major change in the near future.
Yeah.
I'm not pushing for us to do anything,
Well, the nice thing is I think we as a group and we as a community can pivot as needed. Hell, if it's in January, let's do it in January. Who cares? A little gathering would be a great way to just get together if it was, doable. I used to run an event I told you guys about in January every year in the middle of the freezing desert called Winterfest. You know what I mean? And I was excited that they're still doing it. It's, it can happen. People want this stuff, so I think
I agree with you. Yeah, I think if we had, the conviction to, host some kind of event in October, I'm sure we would have plenty of people who would want to go. I mean, I'm not advocating that we do that right now, but I think there would be a big interest because there is a definite, gap.
Honestly, I think we're going to have to get creative, even if we have like all of us I guess it's like later in the year typically, right? When is all of us usually?
Memorial Day weekend.
Every time it's been Memorial Day weekend. I'm thinking about contacting Saratoga Springs again just to see if they would work with us again, but I don't know.
So honestly, I think we're going to have to really start thinking in different ways and think about how you have groups of people get together with also minimizing risk, but also making it fun. You could do something like, a more informal like camping event. I'm not talking about all of us, but just other events we could do where you kind of have your social bubble, and then when the social bubbles meet, that's when you have to have like masks and 6 feet and like, but we can still do things like performances and have art but be more strict about like when your social bubble meets another social bubble. And if we have an area where we can camp and kind of like do our own things most of the time until we come to meet and like, do something together in a, so like physically distant way, that could be an option. And frankly, that's probably something we should think about with all of us, because we won't know if we're going to have a vaccine and if everyone's going to be vaccinated, in whatever that is, the number of months before all of us. So I think we're going to have to start thinking that way anyway. And frankly, I think Burning Man is going to have to start thinking that way, because this is going to go on for at least another year or two. Like it's, yeah. This is the new reality. So digress, but one thought I had was we could do like a more informal camping event and figure out ways to reduce the risk. Like if people are making their own food and eating in their social bubbles, that could be something we could do. But it would be more like camping. So like you got a group over here, you got a group over here, and then we come together and like watch this camp do a drag show or whatever, or this. So does that make sense? Like,
yeah, what is that German style where you all go, everybody goes to one person's house and has a dish, and they all go to the other person's house and has the other dish. So you just do that with drag camps. We go over, everybody goes in circles around this camp for a drag show. Then they go over to this camp for a comedy show. Then they're singing over here.
Yeah. So I think we're just gonna have to get creative because people are gonna be like, honestly, like, well, this is being recorded, so I should be careful. But like a Burning Man style event that is over Zoom just really turns me off. Like, and I think people are really going to be craving, like, even if it's like someone over here 6 feet away, like I can talk to them and have that connection, that face-to-face connection. So I think as a community, as a Burning Man community, we're going to have to start thinking more creative about this. But all that being said, like, I don't know if it's a good idea to like sell tickets to an event, to rent a venue, at least for the next couple months. My gut says like, let's feel out August and see how it goes. Like with the schools reopening and businesses are still trying to figure out whatever, like state guidelines are changing like rapidly. And so I would say give it a month and then kind of see where we're at and still plan on, like, frankly, maybe it'll just give us more time to actually put together a good organization with a good group of people so that once we're ready, we can really hit the ground running and plan a good event. And maybe start small with like a small camping event and then do a bigger, like all of us style event once we prove out this model of like, what is a socially distant event?
That sounds good to me.
Maybe even a nonprofit retreat, like leadership retreat camping, like along the lines of the first couple, all of us, or what'd you call it before, the queer burner, camp out or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could see that functioning really well for this group, with some sort of goal, and then have it, and adjacent folks that would want to participate. So that
Kurt, you also went to the leadership meetings that we had a few years ago too, right? Yeah. Did you go to Matt, or is that before I knew you?
I didn't get involved with all of us right away.
No, 2011, 12, 13, right in there. We did queer burner leadership meetups at the Box Factory, and we had discussions about leadership and all kinds of cool stuff like that. I feel like I'd like to put that on the table again, but especially since the Global Leadership Conference has kind of been gone away too. I don't know. It's just talk. Anyway, so we've talked about everything on the agenda and more. We have a few action items and some things to think about. And then anybody, if I left something off, please update the agenda and let me know. And then we'll talk again in 2 weeks.
Good.
And I think our next meeting is pretty much going to be focused on the 501c3. Right? Okay. And then if anybody else gets more involved in the meantime, let's bring them on board and see where we go.
Yes.
All right. All right, guys. Thank you all for participating. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording now, so bear with me.